MMT, and I just want to maybe pull a little bit on how you think about MMT, maybe sort of define it for us, and maybe help us understand how some of the instruments of MMT might be useful in the current context.
Right. So we have, how many hours do we have?
As long as you want.
As many as you need, baby.
You're right down the fairway for us.
Well, I think at the core of MMT is kind of a distinction between, currency issuers and currency users, and that we cannot use the same tools to analyze a currency user, such as ourselves, to a currency issuer, such as the government, and the naive rules of private accounting. Oh, you need to balance the book. If you run a deficit, sometimes you're going to have to pay. It does not apply to the sovereign. And that seigniorage, which is the issuance of currency, is a legitimate form of financing government, always have been, always will be. And I think from a historical perspective, it's very hard to argue against it, or even from a functional, some people call it a functional monetary theory, because this is how the world works. Like when the US, the government spends money, it does not go out first, ask, can you, go to like a little T-bill in the middle of the street and say, can you give me money for this T-bill so that I can pay the teachers? No, it just credits the bank account of the person it pays. And it's that money comes from the TGA, which is Treasury General Account at the Fed. So if anything, taxes come after spending. It's kind of it reverses the order, right, in it. I don't think anyone can really seriously argue that they are wrong on how things work.
There's a temptation. Right, this always happens with conversations about MMT, where everyone feels like you need to actually define MMT, the functional definition of MMT, and it is important because most people actually don't have the background in that either, right? And it's critical to understand that MMT allows government to spend without the constraint of taxation.
But then the real
constraint of spending is inflation, or supply, the ability for the economy to produce goods and services to meet the demand that's available from the amount of money that the economy has produced, or wealth that the economy and demand the economy has produced. So absolutely, we need to get that out of the way. But there are policy implications too that arise from the fact that the government is not constrained by taxation, but is rather constrained by inflation, that I think is a more interesting topic for discussion, right? And is, I think, when people get angry about MMT, that those are the things they get angry about, and not about the functional plumbing of the financial system.
Yeah, and especially now, because we are hitting that limit, right? I mean, we kind of had this golden window, right, where because we had so much disinflationary forces in the economy because of what happened to bank lending and yada yada, like there was that space for fiscal resources that could be mobilized without being inflationary. And I've argued that again, I come from Europe. I think, Europe missed, 5 years of free lunches there. But that era is over. I mean, I would say we spent that free lunch on COVID on sending checks to people who didn't need it, and PPP loans that were abused by law firms and all sorts of gritters. We had that space, and now we're hitting the real concern about on public spending, which is indeed inflation and the supply. And yes, now I mean, to me, the whole past 10 years have been a real life battle between these two competing monetary views, and the MMT side has won. I mean, everything that MMT has predicted has happened. QE was not inflationary because we're doing, fiscal austerity at the same time. So it's fiscal that matters, not monetary. When you do not have an inflation constraint, you can increase deficits without creating any sort of issues. You do have a free lunch there, and then once you overeat that free lunch, you have an inflationary hangover. I mean, this is pure MMT. The past 10 years has been a crash course in MMT for the world.